Well, hey, you know what? We're done with mobile, and Bluey is not on console, so you know what? At least her name won't be tainted on there. No. I said something. Outright Games. No! Outright Games! I knew it was gonna happen. Even before the leak, I knew this was gonna happen. So let's play some catch up here. Bluey is an Australian animated cartoon that is universally loved and adored by everyone on the planet. If you don't like Bluey, check your pulse, you might be a vampire. Bluey is a show that doesn't talk down to audiences. It's a very nice, cozy, slice of life TV show for everyone. And I must reiterate, the thing that makes it work is that it doesn't skimp out on quality or deliberately try to pad out its runtime. Bluey is a good show no matter what the audience is. Everyone loves it simply because it doesn't rest on its laurels. It's a kid's show, yes, but that doesn't mean anything. But do you know who doesn't give a shit about that? Outright Games. I'm unfortunately very well versed in the lore of Outright Games. I looked at a game of theirs not too long ago while scoping around Xbox Game Pass and found Paw Patrol Mighty Pups, which I then tried and was even worse than I was expecting it to be. So then it clicked in my head. If your whole shtick is that you try to get kids' licenses and then make shovelware out of them, what license would I try to get in order to maximize the amount of profit? Oh! I knew Outright Games was going to get the license, and then sure enough, they got it. So let's just get this over with already. Let's nitpick Bluey the video game. So let's take a look at the story of Bluey the video game first. In Bluey the video game, play as Gregory, a young boy who's been trapped overnight inside of Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. With the help of Freddy himself, Gregory must uncover the secrets of the Pizzaplex. Learn the truth is... Oh, dang it, I was reading the back of FNAF Security Breach. Okay, apparently Bluey and the family are on holiday. And of course, they want to do a lot of stuff, which they have in their sticker book. But before we can do any of that, we gotta clean up toys. After that, we then find a treasure map that Bluey's dad Bandit used to have, which is in 3 separate parts, which Bandit's brothers Stripe and Rad have them. These 3 are brothers. We get both pieces of the map and then we go find the treasure, which turns out to be an old action figure the brothers used to fight over, so they buried so their dad wouldn't take it away. And folks, that's the entire story. I am not kidding. I just told you beat for beat, other than some very tiny little details which we'll get to later, but that is the main plot. And yeah, I get it, this is a show meant for toddlers. I wasn't expecting this to be Kingdom Hearts, but goodness gracious, when I sum the entire story up in one paragraph with barely any paraphrasing, that's pretty bad. And you may say that this is just a simple story for kids, and you know what? You are absolutely right. However, may I please remind you that this is a $40 release, and it has a story this simple. But fine, the story is pretty simple. Okay, how long is the story in total? It can't be as long as it sounds. There's gotta be some side stories along your adventure to make the journey through it more impactful and pace well. But it isn't. How long did it take me to beat the main story? Well, you're gonna have to wait until the end because I want to start criticizing the game before I get to that part. Let's start with the presentation first and foremost. It is so cheap. On paper, I think the game could look great. The game has a lot of similarities with, well, Paper Mario. The characters are all 2D sprites in 3D environments that rip textures and assets from the show, and I think this style can work for a Bluey game, if they actually designed the game to be fully like Paper Mario. The show Bluey is a very visually appealing show. The models look good and the backgrounds look great and gel well with the animation, but here, it just doesn't work, because they are trying to make this game look more like the show. The characters don't look like they have any depth. They look a lot like 2D characters, making the presentation look stale. In the show, the characters are obviously 2D, but due to the whole show being 2D, the characters look and feel like they have depth. But with this 2D and 3D hybrid look, the characters don't feel like they're really there. So I have to ask, why didn't you just make the whole game 2D? Is it to make the game look more impressive? Cause it doesn't. But again, I feel like this style could work if they actually went fully with the papercraft art style. The reason why Paper Mario works is because it's just that, Paper Mario. We know it's paper come to life, and that's kind of the point. and since both the environments and characters are paper, it all fits and makes a very pretty believable world and a different kind of depth. And what makes this worse is that it totally could work with Bluey. You remember that whole episode where Bluey and Bingo make a whole paper craft style of animation of them spending time away from their parents? They could have based the game off of that and it would have absolutely rocked. I could totally get down with that, absolutely. But even though they didn't go with that paper art style, I just feel like the game could do a lot better with its perspective and depth perception. Like, why does this house look this big? I don't think the house looks this big in the show, but even if it did look like that, it would still look like garbage. You know why? Because the animations in this game are cursed. This game committed the ultimate sin. They made all these models and characters run in 60 frames per second. Why is this a bad thing, you may ask? Well, you know those interpolated animation videos where they force 23 FPS into 60 or even 120? Well, that's basically what this looks like. In total fairness, you don't get that Vaseline look you get with interpolated animation, which thank goodness, but what you still get is jittery and jerky animations. A move that would look smooth and very natural in 23 FPS now looks rough and unnatural in 60 FPS. But it's not so bad, you say. Since this animation was created in 60 FPS in mind, it could look a lot worse. Oh, but it does look a lot worse. The game reuses a lot of animations and assets from the show it's based on. You can tell, because when you select a character on the selection screen, it plays an animation from the intro of the show, mainly with Bluey, and it cuts the frame rate, making it look super jank. But not only that, they reused Chilli's animations from her dancing in the intro as well, and while her body is moving in 60 FPS, her stomach is moving in 23 like the original animation, so it makes the whole thing look so wrong and out of proportion. There's more evidence of them just lazily reusing animations from the show, like how Bluey's jumping animation is just her jumping from her intro in the show, so every time she jumps in this game, she looks like she's just constantly constipated. And then there's this whole separate issue, which really annoyed me once I noticed it immediately as soon as I got in the game. Even though I think the puppets and models look out of place and cheap, I do gotta admit, when you actually see them in the game, it does look pretty high quality on PlayStation 5. The characters at face value do look great when we get into cutscenes and they start moving their mouths, which we start having problems. Because every time they move their mouths and play the animations, the mouths become blurry, and it happens with it every time in the cutscenes. I'm assuming the reason for this was they just made the resolution for the Nintendo Switch version that and didn't even bother up-resing it for modern consoles, but goodness, it looks horrible. You could say it's a small thing all you want and I'm complaining too much, but I'm sorry, I'm an animation nut, so when I see something like this, it bothers the heck out of me. But now it's time to get to the gameplay of Bluey the video game. And you know what? It's actually not too bad. If I had to describe it, it's kind of like an adventure game, I guess. Going back to Paper Mario, it's kind of like Paper Mario without the fights, which isn't too bad of an idea. All the levels take place in areas you can then explore after you're done with the game, and you can explore these areas as any of the 4 characters, Bluey, Bingo, Bandit, and Chilli, and you can play it in co-op, and I can actually see this game being pretty decent in co-op. And what's cooler is that you actually need to switch to Bandit or Chilli to do certain parts of the game. Yeah, imagine how low my expectations were when I was literally shocked that you needed a separate character to do separate things. But you know, it is cool. And it makes sense too, because if you're playing the game with your parents, mom or dad, it actually makes them useful to the game and lets them feel more involved. I actually like that aspect of it. It only comes into play about 3 or 4 times throughout the game, but hey, it is there. So while the adventure gameplay at its core isn't horrible, it's not exactly what I would call great, given the fact there's not really much to do in these levels. It's basically just running around and doing very short tasks. And this is where the minigames come and try to shake things up. And in theory, this should provide some good fun and replayability. But it doesn't. We'll talk about the actual minigames later, but in the main game where you play them, no joke, they last for about 5 seconds. When you're finished picking up toys in the first level, you play Uppies, where you have to keep the balloon from touching the ground, and you do it 7 times. And it just moves on. And it's not like I used some pro epic gamer skill and just speedran it. No, the balloon just goes like barely a foot in front of you, so it's pretty much impossible for you to lose. And the rest of the minigames are exactly the same. Which brings me to the plot twist. Do you want to know how long it took me to beat this game, which, reminder, is $40? An hour and 21 minutes. I am not kidding. Once you get all 3 pieces of the map from Uncle Stripe and Rad, you dig up the treasure, and that's the entire game. And keep in mind, that 1 hour and 21 minutes it took me to beat was me goofing off on stream. I've seen playthrough of this game take less than an hour. $40 for the most bare bones gameplay, and at that, a gameplay experience this short. So you know what I did? I got the platinum for this game. I sure did. And you know how long it took? 4 hours. 4 hours for platinum. And most of that was just because I was trying to find these stupid plant stickers, because most people have 100% this game in 2 hours. But in my case scenario, which is probably the best we'll go with for kids, 4 hours for $40 is an absolute ripoff. What's the point of spending $40 on a game, especially for kids, if the day after you buy it, they start begging you for another game? I'm not asking for a 12-hour long epic game or anything, but for kids, especially at this price point, you gotta give them enough of a game to play that can last a while, at the very least give them something they want to replay. Sonic Mania, a game for $30 with the DLC included, is a game just as long, but it's addicting and replayable, so anyone can at least get more out of that game, even if the main game is pretty short. I can't believe what is about to come out of my mouth. But Sonic Forces at least took 3 hours to complete the main campaign, and then after you beat the story, you had a fairly decent post-game. Not a great post-game, but you could get more out of it from completing the bonus stages and completing all the missions. Sonic Forces may be one of my worst games ever made, but I got more time out of that than this, and I could at least let this go if the game was even replayable. But it isn't! There's the 4 minigames you unlock through the main story, which, while providing a decent experience in co-op, would get old way too fast and give you no reason to replay them. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be as apologetic towards this game as much as I can, but let's be real, this is just a shameless cash grab to make money off of Bluey's fanbase. And look, it was fun in games when it was with freaking Paw Patrol, cause who cares, right? Bluey is genuinely a great show and proves there is benefits to appealing more than just kids, which is why a product that just works to do the bare minimum with Bluey makes me so mad. Bluey deserves much better than this, and your kids deserve much better than this. If you're a Bluey fan or you have a kid that's a Bluey fan and you just have to get this game, please try to get this game at a discount. I am talking bargain bin. $10. Until then, just watch the show. You'll get more time and a more enjoyable experience just binging the show over and over again. But Outright Games, you have messed with the wrong game reviewer, alright? I am not done with you. I am committed to exposing your games and ripping the veil of how cheap and worthless your games are. You are now my LJN. You are now my Phoenix Games. And the more I look in and tear into your awful library of games, nothing will change. Not a little bit. You'll just keep doing it and it'll probably still work. But I will make enough content to milk it. But hey, at least I can rest on the fact that this is probably the lowest you'll ever go. I can't see yourself going any lower. No, you didn't.